Awesome. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started today, everybody. Thank you for coming. We have a great number of people, 35 online already. So that number is going to keep going up, and we have a full house here in room 308. So that's fantastic. We may have a few more joining us quietly, and they'll get their food and get settled. So we don't waste any time getting started. My name is Sarah Flanagan. I'm the director of our community health program here at Clarkson College, as well as our IPE program. So everybody should be receiving different emails from me and reminders about things. One of my other roles here at the college is helping with our student support committee, and always a great group of people to work with. We put together a lot of different educational programs throughout the whole year that are available to students, faculty, and staff. And we pick topics based on what you tell us you want to learn about. So at the end of each of our events, we have an evaluation. We'll have one today. When it asks you what you want to learn about, don't be shy. Tell us different topics you want us to cover, and we'll make sure that we incorporate them in different ways, whether it's through a student support committee, for our diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging committee, through wellness, through our counseling office, or even through some different student-run programs that we have here as well. So for those of you who are wanting to use this for IPE credit, it is approved for either knowledge or community. So you'll pick one of those. You'll write your reflection about it. Those reflections need to be submitted right away so you don't forget. There is a 90-day window, but I will tell you guys, people forget and then they panic later, because if it's past 90 days, it won't count. So I would just say in the next day or two, while it's fresh in your mind, go ahead and do that. In order to have this count for IPE though, since this is the first event of our year here in the fall, new students have to have completed through module 4. Okay, if you haven't yet, don't panic. We do these all the time. So whether you're here for 2 years or 3 or 4, you can come to something pretty much every month, get a free meal, learn about important topics, and then be able to use that for course credit as well. Okay, any questions, people can reach out to me afterwards, but I don't want to waste time getting started. We have a fantastic speaker today, dear friend Julie Brummer. She's one of our 2 counselors here at Clarkson College, available both in person and online for students at no charge. So she's going to talk with us about self-care and how it's especially important for healthcare professionals, whatever role you're in. And so we're eager to have her here today. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks.
We will open up for questions at the end. And our online folks, if you guys do have questions, you can type them in the chat. Greta is manning that for us, and she'll be able to share those questions at the end as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Is this
The clicker? Here, the clicker. All right, we're good.
okay? Thanks, Sarah. I just also wanted to mention Sarah Flanagan works so hard. And I just adore her, and she is a great advocate for the students and putting all this stuff on everywhere, inside out, up and down. So I just wanted to kind of give you a kind of a little bit of a shout out. I've thought about it for a long time. So my name is Julie Brummer, and I'm one of the counselors here at Clarkson College. Jenny Kissinger, raise your hand, please, Jenny, is the other one. And we are located in the first floor of the Commons building, which is across the street, okay? And really the best way to get a hold of us is just to email us. I mean, you can make an appointment online, but it's a lot easier to just email us. There's a lot more appointments sometimes available than what's actually online, So, okay, so this topic is really, really important to me because I think we could all agree that the healthcare system has really struggled, and that it's a little bit in a disarray. And even if you're just, going to see your doctor, you probably in small ways experience it, from telling your story to 5 different people, or for them not having information that you gave them that is a little concerning, especially if you've been going there for a long period of time. And then I think so I've been in this field since like 1989. And I think every year, the big topic is getting professionals to talk to each other. And it just seems to go nowhere. But we know that that's an issue, right? If you get a referral, you'll go to the doctor and he'll be like, okay, why are you here? And so, I think that there is a lot of care that could probably be replaced back into the system. How we get there, that's like a whole other thing. But what I wanted to talk to you about is specifically healthcare professionals. And I'm gonna come from it as an angle of college students like here in a healthcare college, all right? Before I do that though, I did want to just kind of let you know, a lot of you are probably aware of this, but here are some unique challenges that face healthcare professionals over any other profession, okay? Burnout, compassion fatigue, I'll touch a little bit about those. Turnover, long hours, workforce shortage, technology roadblock. It seems like every 6 months, they're redoing the computer program at clinics or doctor's offices or hospitals, you know, it's just, and then it seems to be, I just kind of got an earful at my at my doctor's. For the health checkup. And she said, yeah, we redid our computers and it takes us 6 times longer to do something that, you know, and that's a great example of that. And then I want to talk a little bit about the unique health issues that in particular just healthcare professionals experienced versus all the other professions, okay? And then addiction is pretty high, debt, stress and emotional situations. And sometimes in regards to the stress and emotional situations, like there's stress and emotional situations, but then some of these factors can start to contribute to burnout and compassion fatigue. And then exposure to hazardous material, okay? So I tried to make a ton of notes, so we'll see how this goes, because I rarely actually read my own notes. I just kind of fly by the seat of my pants. But what I wanted to say about compassion fatigue in particular, so compassion fatigue is actually a fairly new topic that's come about, you know, within the last, you know, I'd say, okay, we're 2024, within the last like maybe 20 years, 25 years, okay? Why? I have no idea, because it's been going on forever. Okay, there are some people who, when they are exposed to somebody else's suffering, they are going to experience it profoundly different than other people will. And compassion fatigue is almost as if the individual is taking on the emotions of the patient that they're caring for. And I'm not talking about daily basis. I'm usually talking, it can get exacerbated by daily contact, but it usually kind of, the little seed starts to get planted when there's been like some kind of a traumatic event at work and you were personally working with the person, or you had a personal relationship and something bad happened to them, okay? But then you go on and you know, you're fine, but then as you go on, once a week or twice a week, you know, little blips on your radar that pull at your heartstrings and, you know, it can really build up. Compassion fatigue really needs to be addressed by working with another professional, like whether it's a counselor, your supervisor, it does not go away, by the way. All right. Burnout is very different. Burnout is related to stress at work. There's a lot of variables that contribute to feeling stress at work, feeling like you have freedom at work. And if you feel like you don't have freedom at work, that can add to your feeling of stress. Wages can be a feeling of stress, how you're treated by other coworkers and colleagues. A big one in healthcare is a lack of a sense of teamwork. Or what would make burnout less is if you worked in a facility where there was a lot of teamwork. But burnout can actually be fixed by either getting a new job or, you know, changing to a different floor. Where compassion fatigue is almost like a secondary PTSD for some people. So it's really important to know the difference. Turnover, you guys all know it's pretty high. Some of this is no brainers, but I still feel like I really needed to say that. Long hours and workforce shortage. So A lot of people say a lot of this stuff is contributed to COVID. By the way, in all of my research, very little of this was contributed to COVID. COVID exacerbated it, but this was all going on. There is at the end, I have a resource page, and the Surgeon General at the time talked about the workforce shortage way before COVID. So it's kind of interesting. And then I talked a little bit technology, all the charting, blah, 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 you know, and when they change it, then you got to learn it, and you know, it's different. And so that's an issue. And then I wanted to talk about health issues. So health issues, as opposed to other professionals, okay? Healthcare professionals suffer from a greater number of musculoskeletal disorders and issues, skin damage, more chronic disease than other professions, more emergency room visits, more doctor visits than other professions, and they have a higher rate of obesity. And that itself leads to a whole bunch of other issues, okay? And then addiction.
Go girl.
So, what was it? So just real quick, before I had children, I was the coordinator of the licensee assistance program. And what that did is I worked with licensed healthcare professionals who got into licensure issues due to substance abuse and use. And I did it for 3 years, okay? I spent the first 6 months of my job going, I could not believe this happened. You know, like
Your
I just was
girlfriend did not come.
kind of naive.
Ew, don't send her then.
Ryan, can you please mute, because the whole room can hear you? Thank you.
We heard that. And so what I'm gonna say just in general is healthcare professionals are at a higher risk of having a substance abuse or dependency issue than the general population, okay? And it's been that way forever. I mean, so I was the licensee assistance program coordinator in like 1999, 2001. And in the 3 years that I was in that position, where I started with the number of, you know, pharmacists, nurses, doctors, EMT, dentists, you know, anybody who had a license in the state of Nebraska. You know, nurses, obviously, they have the largest numbers. So there's always a lot of nurses, but they were very small numbers of all the other ones. Well, by the time I left, it was almost even. There were lots more doctors, lots more pharmacists and stuff like that. So so this is a big issue. It always has been a big issue, and I can't imagine it's getting to be a smaller issue. But one of the statistics I just kind of wanted to share with you is, is 15% of all healthcare practitioners will misuse a substance. Prescription abuse is 5 times higher in healthcare professionals. And basically it kind of boils down to 1 in 10 doctors and 1 in 5 nurses will develop a substance use disorder. And then on the realm of mental health, healthcare professionals are kind of the some of the last people to ask for help, which is a huge barrier. But they also, healthcare professionals also have a higher suicide rate. So that's an important issue to do something about, you know. It's so funny, we a lot of times we don't say as we do. You know what I mean? It's like we tell people to do this, but then we don't do it for ourselves for sure, you know. So it's really important. This is just a little chart that looked at from 2018 to 2022. And it just talked about a little bit about what I talked about. And so poor mental health days, I thought that was, I was like, what the hell is that? But it's basically at work, or it's basically taking a day off work because your mental health was suffering so much. So in all of those, burnout, turnover in tension, and another big emerging trend is harassment and work violence, kind of on the increase as well. Does anybody have anything to say, does anybody have any questions about this?
Who's turnover intention?
So turnover intention is healthcare professionals that in 2018, they were thinking about leaving. And then in 2022, this is how many were thinking about leaving. Yeah, let me see if I have anything in turnover. Yeah, it just increased. All of them just increased. Did somebody else have? Yeah,
Is harassment work, you should say staff including.
all of it, yep.
Just a question about, do you think that there are certain types of positions that go into healthcare that are kind of contributes to these numbers?
Do you mean like personalities?
Yeah.
Oh, I do think, yes. I will say, so I've been here 13 years, something like that. And so you get in that time, that's, you get to see a lot of trends and you get to see a lot of things. And what's really kind of funny is a lot of times I can tell when a student comes into my office, which program they're in, which is kind of funny, and then the other thing is that, yeah, I mean, like you get to see there's a lot of people that get into healthcare because they want to do something good. Now, if their glass is half empty, that is a recipe for disaster. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to having your glass half full and then, moving on. But I will tell you though, the other thing is a lot of times you can just be, school and everything, and then you get into a setting and it's toxic and some of the way they treat each other, you're like a deer in the headlight. So there's so many factors to that, but I do think it just kind of like, even if you want to break it down, if you look at like people that get interested in certain types of medicine, you can find some characteristics. It's not 100%. There's always going to be, that one or two person who's going to break the mold. But yeah, there are a lot of trends.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
Because of your answer. You have like maybe some assessments that are done like at the very onset. Is that informed by that?
What do you mean assessments?
Well, we have different assessments or different things as new students that we take. Is that kind of a proactive step on behalf of, say, the college to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can help with that. Not necessarily, yes and no, it depends, right?
Okay.
So new students who are brand new right now in fall of 24, like you have committed either already or will by tomorrow, be completing the IDI, the Intercultural Assessment Inventory. That gives us great information to kind of find a baseline as a college as a whole, like the aggregate, so that we can have more programming so that we can support each person in their own individual journey. Nothing is ever tied to your names. Also within IPE, you complete an ICAS survey as a pre-test, a mid-test, and a post-test. That just helps us look at overall trends, looking at opportunities for us to supplement with more education, more interactive opportunities, but it's not necessarily anything that would then carry on outside of your experience at Clarkson College, because we can't control those extra factors and variables after you leave here. But we're doing all of these different things to try to help prepare you as best as we can for a variety of different professional settings and situations. Does that help?
That helps.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I add too?
Yeah.
Are you in nursing? Cause I know ATI, we have you do like a stress
Oh, she's
profile that talks about ATI. I don't know if anybody knows. So that's just really to help you recognize your own strengths and your own weaknesses and be able to seek out resources. And just self-awareness.
Yeah, so there might be different programmatic things too. We have opportunities. We try to do a lot of things that allow for introspection and self-reflection, because that's where we find the most valuable growth opportunities. So yeah, that's a great question. So yes, we do things internally, but it doesn't necessarily have a direct correlation with what happens later that we can measure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So I really want you to kind of keep this in mind a little bit. And now I'm going to kind of talk just a little bit about college students in general, okay? So these are probably the most popular unproductive habits that college students start to develop when they're in college, okay? Procrastination. This is a big one here. Disrupted sleep schedule, wasting time. And when we talk about wasting time, this is a big one everywhere. We're talking probably, for the most part, social media is probably the biggest time waster
Or binging
of
Netflix.
students. Or, yeah, so that's, you know, but that's probably the most disruptive, is being on some source of a device that, you know, and you kind of lose track of time, and all of a sudden, oh my God, 3 hours went by, okay? This is a huge one, diet. Everybody starts to skip meals. And because they're skipping meals, they start grabbing processed food. That's a whole nother, like, you know, presentation, is the toxicity of processed food. The skipping meals. And then the other thing is if you have some, if you're already stressed out or you have an underlying mental health problem, this behavior will exacerbate it. Okay. Alcohol, smoking, and caffeine. I have a few numbers on that one. 37% of college students said that they regularly use an illegal substance or abuse alcohol. So it's a, you know, it happens in college a lot. And then comparison, which is, you know, you start to, oh, how are they doing opposed to me? You know, you start to do that, especially I think it's a little bit a bigger risk in a smaller college. It's easier to do that. And everybody's, how'd you do? What did you think? You know, and you thought you bombed it and you're like, oh my God, sitting there. So you start to compare yourself with how other people look on the outside to how you feel on the inside. And that is a recipe for it. This is a very big one. Not addressing or ignoring mental health needs. So, you know, people just think, oh, it'll go away, or, oh, I can deal with it. Or they find temporary relief and maybe some not very healthy things. Or just even, you know, talking about it with, you know, talking, and then all of a sudden, oh, it's not that big of a deal. People may even tell you it's not that big of a deal. It really doesn't matter what anybody says. It matters what you think. Or waiting until the problem is so big. So I always tell students, if you didn't perform in a way you wanted to perform on a test, come see us. Because it's a lot easier to fix that, whether it's your preparation or whether it's the actual during the test. It's a lot easier to fix that when you've only failed one test as opposed to 3 or 4. But I have been known to help students who have failed 3 or 4, but it's just easier. Sometimes students will get into retail therapy. So to make themselves feel better, they'll go buy stuff, do stuff, you know. And then poor time management is actually a big one. And the problem is we all think that we're really good time managers. So that one gets to be a little bit of a trap. But you can see how some of these habits, when started, you know, and it just kind of, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Oh, I'll do better next time. But then you don't do anything different next time. You could just see how if you carry these on into the workforce, that these can really exacerbate, because when you get into the workforce, it's a whole different ballgame. It's very, very different. Okay. I did want to tell you, in regards to mental health, in 2023, 36% of all college students were diagnosed with anxiety. 28% with depression, 15% considered suicide, and 25% reported feeling isolated. And 99% of students facing academic challenges said it affects their mental health. So, and there were no stats on eating disorder. I'm sure there are, but I just, you know, I know that there are, but they didn't come up with this study. Okay. And then this, I just thought, this is kind of, by the way, I just thought this might be kind of helpful. So this is just common disruptions of college success. Going to class unprepared, this has nothing to do with my presentation. I just thought it would be, I ran across and I thought, oh, maybe the students would like that. Allowing notifications during study sessions. So like your phone is nowhere in your mind while you're studying. Studying without a plan is a big one. You just sit down to study for the sake of studying. Design a plan for yourself. Memorizing instead of understanding. There are some classes and there's some material where it is memorization, but most of it towards the end of your career is not. So don't get in the habit. The beginning might be more memorization, but at some point you have to go to conceptualization. And then I mentioned that social media over consumption. All right. So professionalism starts in school, because what I found is when I worked with all those healthcare professionals that got in trouble with licensure issues, some of them would come to me because the hospital administrator would call me because whatever they did was not crucial enough. That's not really the word I want to, but whatever they did wasn't serious enough that if they got help, they could just go along their profession and go along their way. And I would monitor them, like I would do an assessment. I would recommend a treatment facility that works with healthcare professionals. And then I monitored them for a year or two. I kind of worked with whoever the referral system is. Sometimes healthcare professionals, though, do stuff because of their addiction at work, and you have to report them to the state board. It always looked good to the board if they were working with me, but sometimes, the stories are huge, but sometimes they had to be reported to the board because it was too lethal. What happened was just way too lethal. Should it happen again, kind of thing. Okay. And what I found with all those professionals that I worked with, a lot of their behaviors started in school. They started prescribing to each other in school. They started, now this is just not doctors. They started taking each other's prescribed medications that weren't for them. They kind of just started to have fairly loose ethics, because to have, more rigid ethics might have taken a little more work in certain aspects. So it's just really important a lot of times to see how you are as a student and your attitudes and all that stuff to keep it in check. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But here's the important thing about being a professional. So starting today, start acting like the professional you want to be, or find an instructor or a staff member that emulates the kind of professional you want to be. Because if you start now, it almost just becomes habit by the time you graduate. It actually makes school a lot easier. But the other thing too is it diminishes burnout and compassion fatigue in the future, which is a huge issue in healthcare. It decreases potential licensure issues, which I just kind of mentioned. It increases overall job satisfaction and success, to just really kind of start figuring out what kind of professional you want to be. So when you have to do little notes, or you have to do something that's a little extra time consuming, your attitude about it is really important. Because if you think you're not going to have to do that on your job, no matter how stupid you think something is, if you have to do it on your job, you have to do it. Get over it, So just little tiny things like that make a huge difference. But the other thing is job satisfaction directly impacts your wellness, okay? And it minimizes the unique challenges healthcare professionals face. So if you tend to have a very strong professional definition of yourself, a lot of times it usually includes wellness. And then that a lot of times will help you avoid a lot of the physical health issues and some of the mental health issues that healthcare professionals are at a little bit higher risk for. Any questions? Nope. Okay. All right. So we all know wellness is really important. But we're right? Why are we talking about it? So what I decided is I decided to actually give you some ideas of how to actually begin your own wellness. As if you were the director of the wellness program. You're the director of the wellness program for yourself. So, first of all, you have to figure out, what does wellness mean to you? And I'll talk about it in a little bit, but what are the parameters of wellness? Okay, it's really important. So it's just start talking to somebody about wellness. I want to be healthier. I want to be stronger. I want to be more fit. I want to be able to climb the stairs and not get out of breath. I want to be able to get up and down off the floor without, it taking 5 minutes or it hurting my knees. My shoulders are killing me. I want to get rid of this pain in my shoulders, this pain in my gut, the pain in my low back. It all kind of, and that's mostly just physical stuff, but sometimes that's where people notice it first is physically they don't feel good. Mentally, I want to be happier. I want to have more joy. I want to feel more fulfilled in life. So that's just kind of like talking about it and figuring out kind of what's most important to you. Okay. Value your physical and mental health. I can't make you do that. And we really struggle with that. And it might be good to talk to somebody as to why you don't. When I work with students, the first thing to go is their physical and mental health when it comes to school. Well, I'm just going to tell you right now, having a job isn't going to make it any easier. I mean, there's just always going to be a reason not to. But that's the first thing that goes. Setting boundaries. A lot of people have trouble with boundaries, but in order to kind of have wellness as a priority, you have to be willing to say, I'm not doing that because I'm gonna work out or I'm gonna eat well. I'm not going to McDonald's because I'm gonna make myself something to eat. I'm not, you just, at some point, you just have to say, it's almost like the 12 steps. You have to make a decision. Step 3, made a decision. You just have to do that. But the benefits you reap are just so profound, which was the slide before, okay? Redefine the value of perfectionism. Is it really that great to be so perfect? And we all know we're not perfect. So isn't that an interesting logic? It's like a merry-go-round we put in our brains. So just even, writing out and figuring out what is your value of perfectionism and does it supersede your mental and physical health? Because I bet it does. Realize self-care is a necessity, not a luxury. There's a saying in yoga. I used to teach yoga forever. And there's an old saying in yoga saying, either you pay for your health now or you pay for it later. Just you decide. Make time for yourself. Put yourself on your own schedule. If you looked at your schedule in a week time, where are you on it? Nowhere, probably. So those are just some simple things you could start doing to help you get moving into what a wellness would be for you personally. And everybody's different, by the way. So then here are a few things to ask yourself. I did want you to know Indiana University has a really elaborate wellness inventory. I mean, it's really elaborate. Like I couldn't even it would take us 20 minutes or so to get through it, but I liked it. And so if you're interested in it, that's something you could check out. But I want you just in your head while you're sitting there, I want you to think about within the last week, 1 to 5, 1 is never, 5 is always. I have felt happy on a scale of 1 to 5. What would what would you give yourself? And then on a scale of 1 to 5, I've been able to cope well with the problems this week. I have felt relaxed. Give yourself where that sits. I have felt good about myself. I've been sleeping well. I've been satisfied with my relationships. In the last week, I've had healthy habits, which means diet, exercise, hygiene. I've been able to focus in the last week, scale of 1 to 5. I've made good decisions in the last week, scale of 1 to 5. And then I've been able to, and this is a no-brainer, but this is kind of the part of the problem. I've been able to fulfill my obligation at work and school. So everybody gets a 5 on that one, right? But a 1 on everything else, So yeah, that's just a few little ideas that you could start just kind of looking at, because you have to meet yourself where you're at. You know, I mean, there are thousands of coaches and gurus and, you know, wellness experts and wellness professionals, and they have this expensive, huge plan. Why doesn't everybody do it? It's because you got to meet yourself where you're at. You got to work with you. It doesn't matter what other people say. You can take inspiration by what other people say, and that can start a spark inside of you, but you gotta work with yourself. And if you are having terrible sleep, or you are having, your diet is terrible, your energy level, you know, you gotta work with yourself. If you're getting terrible sleep, you're not gonna be able to start exercising. I can tell you that right now. You know, if your diet is terrible, I mean, there's just so many things that you have to look at in order to help yourself get on the right road. But here's the other thing that I know for sure about wellness. It's these small little changes that make the shift. It's not the big, huge changes. It's the tiny little changes you make that make the shift. Okay. So here's how to begin. You could even do it right now. And I'm going to tell you right now, you got to write this stuff down, because if you rely, oh, I'll remember it, you won't. And this is important enough for your future, for your, I mean, for your current self, but also your future self, is that define goals for yourself. Like, what do you want out of it? You know, do you want, is it, I want to have more energy. I want to feel more connected to the people around me. I mean, you know, whatever. I want to lose weight. I want to, whatever it is. I want to eat a certain way. Okay. And then once you kind of figure out what goals you're really looking at for yourself, because I was thinking about this and I was thinking, how many of you, maybe once a week, set goals for yourself? Any kind of goal. I don't care. How many? Okay, not too many. One, two. So most of us spend our lives just going around doing what we're told to do. There's something to think about. If you're not setting a goal, if you're not steering your ship, you're just kind of doing what other people are telling you you should be doing. And I would like to change that for you. Okay. So once you kind of decide the goals for yourself, what would be the benefits of those goals? And then assess where to start. So I gave you that little, you know, that little inventory, 1 to 5. So that kind of plays in here. And then here's kind of the 7 pillars of self-care. And I will tell you, from a mental health perspective, and Jenny, you can add if you want, but self-care is how you have a relationship with yourself, people. It's how you learn to trust yourself. It's how you learn to believe in yourself. It's how you learn to know you can get through anything. It's perseverance, it's resilience. It's all those things. It gets developed through self-care. So you show up for yourself. You take the time for yourself. You self-soothe. You nurture yourself if you need it. You make yourself do something that you're too tired, but you know it's good for you. I mean, self-care does so much more than just this kind of empty suit talking kind of thing. It is how, on a psychological level, you show you care about yourself. And it has everything to do with the relationship you have for yourself. Okay. So here are this, and everybody needs to start at different spots. Do you know what I mean? So like environmentally, I mean, if you're in a toxic, unhealthy environment, whether it's emotional or physical, some of this other stuff's going to be really hard. Mental health, if you're really struggling with your mental health, until you can kind of get some help and get, you know, your hands around that, some of this other stuff will be hard. physical, if you've got pain, if you've got, disc problem, if, whatever, if you've got something wrong with your body, frozen shoulder, it's gonna be really hard to lift weights if you got frozen shoulder. So, some of the stuff you just need to take care of first, but actually even doing that is self-care. So I'm not always talking about an exercise program or a diet program in the least, okay? I'm talking about when you've been on your feet for 12 hours and you're exhausted, sit on the edge of your bed and massage your feet. Use some aromatherapy. I mean, it's little, simple, quick things that help, okay? Social's a big one too. Make sure you're kind of hanging out with people that build you up and move you forward, not kind of keep you stuck. And then define your roadblocks. What gets in my way? My job, my kids, my time, my head. What gets in your way the most? Okay.
There's 6 listed. Would emotional be up there as well?
I guess I do a mental is emotional as well. Kind of, yeah. Okay, so here are some ideas. I kind of mentioned add simple, small, new, healthy behaviors. Adding a positive new behavior, I'm going to tell you, research has shown it is way easier to do that than to try to stop a bad habit. So add something positive. Okay. Trying to stop a bad habit is just banging your head against the wall for the most part. There's always going to be somebody out there who did it, but just research shows it's a lot easier to start doing healthy things or do new positive habits than to try to unhook yourself from negative, patterns and thinking. Okay. Another really simple thing is add something you used to do that you enjoy back into your life. And it could be something you did when you were 6, 10, 12, 13, 15 years old. Doesn't have to be within the last 5 years, okay? Turn your phone off more. That could be one simple thing. Just turn it off more. Practice gratitude. So as you guys go through this semester, I'm going to ask you to just do it for one semester, okay? Every time you catch yourself saying, I have to study, I have to go to clinicals, I have to go to class, I want you to stop yourself and I want you to replace it with, I get to go to clinicals, I get to go to class, I get to take this test. Because in reality, on a global level, that is true. That is very real. Not everybody gets the benefits we have, So just even that little thing, every time you catch yourself, I have to, replace it with I get to, okay? This is why. Practicing gratitude releases dopamine and serotonin. And it can affect, there has been some research in practicing gratitude increases the gray matter in your brain, and it also enhances your neural sensitivity, which aids in learning and decision-making. And then positive thinking. What I want to say quickly about positive thinking is not ignoring negative things. That is not what it is. Positive thinking is taking something that has happened to you that feels very negative and very heavy and finding a way to overcome it. And one of the ways you can start doing that may be with your self-talk, but it might be a positive behavior. It might be going for a walk, something like that. It might be lighting a candle. It could be thousands and thousands of things, okay? So positive thinking releases serotonin, endorphins, dopamine, and oxytocin. And doing something nice for another person, like, and not being found out about it, releases oxytocin and dopamine. So, you could just start with that. Any questions? Okay. All right. So then I want to talk a little bit about some techniques. I could have a whole hour, and people that know me know this on the relaxation stuff. So, what I want to say though, is I just wanted you to know, you may not know, but some of you probably do know. So when I talk about relaxation techniques, I'm talking about breathing techniques, I'm talking about guided imagery, I'm talking about progressive muscle relaxation. And so body scans, that's what I'm talking about when I think of relaxation techniques. There's probably a ton more that I forgot. But when you practice relaxation techniques, it releases the feel-good hormones, which is some of them that I just mentioned a little bit ago. Besides the fact that it actually, when you breathe better, you breathe deeper, your body gets more oxygen, your brain gets more oxygen, and it actually just helps every organ in your system work better when it has a lot of oxygen. We tend to breathe very shallow. And when you're stressed or under duress, you breathe even more shallow. So it's really important every day to really monitor how you're breathing. And there are cells in your lungs based on how you're breathing that tell the cells in your heart how fast to beat. So you can play with that a little bit. There's really some popular breathing techniques that are kind of forceful breathing techniques. And how those work are that they actually have found that those types of like kind of breathing techniques, they do have a benefit, but I don't encourage doing them alone. Because there are actually some indications of if you have certain health issues, you shouldn't even do those types of breathing exercises. But what that does is it releases a chemical called DMT, which they have found is involved in deep healing. So, and breathing techniques really help release and flood the system with all the feel-good endorphins and neurotransmitters and stuff like that. Okay. I also think it's super cool, and there has to be a very valuable reason for this, is breathing is the only function of your autonomic nervous system that is both outside your control and inside your control. That has to be for a profound reason. So play with your breath, breathe, breathe, breathe as much as you can. 30 minutes of movement every day improves your mood and health. And it doesn't really necessarily, I mean, you could start with like parking far away to get to class or walk. It doesn't have to necessarily be 30 minutes all at once, although that is the goal, but it could be 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. That would be eventually the goal, is that you would do it for 30 minutes at a time. But there's a lot of research that just says 30 minutes of walking 3 to 4 times a day really helps with mood. Okay. And helps with your health. Make sure you have support. Make sure you have people that aren't, when you're trying to eat healthy, buying candies and cookies and cake and chocolate and all that kind of stuff. Or when you want to work out, they're enticing you to stay on the couch and watch the Serpent Queen, watch, the latest, whatever. So just surround yourself with supportive people. It's a lot easier. It is easier. And then I wanted to add when I say add relaxing activities. And remember I said it doesn't take much. It doesn't, by the way. 4 minutes of deep breathing changes your physiology. So there you go. But when I say about adding relaxing activities, I am talking about as simple as music, art, going outside, gardening, journaling, and reading. And let me read to you some of the things that happens. When you journal, you release dopamine and serotonin. When you read, when you're reading a book, you release dopamine. When you are gardening, it's serotonin and dopamine. When you look at art of any kind, it is serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine. And music does all of them, but with the added benefit of acetylcholine. That's kind of interesting. And when you get to understand your ears and how they're hooked into your brain, it makes a lot of sense. But we don't use our ears, which, by the way, never shut off. It's the one sense organ that never shuts off. When we use our ears as a way to promote wellness and health and relaxation, it has a very profound effect and we don't do it enough. You could listen to, you know, on your way to work, on your way to class, when you work out, right before you go to bed, and everybody's music is a little different. I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about that. It can be any music that just makes your heart happy, okay? And one of the most important is laugh. Laugh, laugh, laugh. If you have to make yourself laugh for 5 minutes every day, do it. Laughter releases all of the feel-good chemicals in your body. It is so powerful. If you have to look up a comedian or watch funny videos, take the, you know, if you're gonna be on your phone, you know, let yourself laugh. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't know if it's this way, I'm gonna guess it's this way in the hospital. But when I used to work at the psychiatric hospital, if we didn't laugh, we were gonna lose our minds. The stuff that happens is just you as a healthcare professional run into stuff that no one else runs into or sees. And you gotta find a way to when it gets so deep and heavy, to find a way to pick it up. Okay. Oh, this was interesting too. Massage and facials release oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. We'll get a facial. All right, so if you want, are there any questions? Nope. If you want any more information on this, feel free to contact either Jenny or myself. Or if you need anything else, I will tell you, the more you practice little acts of self-care and wellness towards yourself, it does have a way of empowering you. It really does. And then, oh, there's just some of my resources, some of the articles that